of me running the meeting. And I'm not as good at this as he is, and I missed a meeting, and that's when they made me vice chair. So here we go at 4 o'clock. We are starting our meeting. Roll call.
Mayor White stated he would be absent this evening, asked for an excused absence. Councilmember Mike Lara.
Here.
City Manager Elizabeth Gibbs, I believe, is on her way. Manager Kyle Warzinski.
Here.
Chairman Lawson stated he would be absent this evening, asked for an excused absence. Vice Chair Betty Rader.
Here.
Member Ahmed. Member Beneke.
I'm here.
Member Brown. Member Coblin.
Here.
Member Moran.
Here.
Member Vince. And Member Glider.
Here.
Thank you.
Were there any excused absences? That
Yes, we have Mayor White and Chairman Lawson.
Okay, thank you. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nicole, we don't have a screen.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Are there any adjustments to the agenda today? No. Do we have any conflict of interest disclosures? Oh, there I am. Do we have anyone here for public comment?
I have no requests to speak, but I'll check with the phone line. Rudy, do we have anyone on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
Thank you. Action items, public hearing request, approval of the minutes from our last meeting on October 12th. Are there any discussions of those minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, and I'll
Do you have
call
that?
roll.
Okay.
Councilmember Lara,
Yes.
Manager Warzinski,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rader,
Yes.
Member Ahmed,
Yes.
Member Beneke,
Yes.
Member Coblin,
Yes.
Member Moran,
Yes.
and Member Glider.
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving on to the Downtown Business Incentive Program, staff report.
Thank you, committee chair, members of the committee. This is a continuation of many meetings worth of work and also continuation of last meeting in which we presented our draft of the Downtown Business Incentive Program, and we discussed it. We had public comment on the draft at the last meeting, and then staff took all of those comments, concerns, and suggestions and made a couple modifications. So I'm going to go ahead and start a slideshow that accompanies my staff report. So let me know when you can see that. Can everyone on Zoom see that?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So we didn't add any programs, but we did retool slightly some of the programs and how they work. So this is the Downtown Facade Improvement Program, intended to provide a matching fund allocation to each business that applies and has awarded it for facades or other exterior building upgrades. So the program allotment that we were thinking of is $200,000, maximum of a $1-to-1 match, $1 match of 50% of total project cost, not to exceed $50,000 on a project totaling $100,000 or more. And that was one of the changes, is the way I had written it last meeting was a little confusing in terms of exactly what it was. So I changed it to be clear that it's 1-to-1 match up to 50% of the project cost. What else did we do? We added eligible property improvements. So if you were to go to page, where is it? Page 8 of 16 of the agenda packet, you have now a section under that program calling out eligible property improvements. And the first category is supply and installation contracts. So that was intended to be broken out for very simple exterior improvements, being new signage, awnings, exterior lighting, anti-graffiti treatment on existing windows and so forth. And that category was intended for businesses that maybe are uninterested or unable to hire an architect to do a full-blown redrafting of the building, to still beautify their building and kind of upgrade what the facade looks like by adding these architectural elements. The second category in terms of property improvements would be more extensive in terms of what they would be doing on the building and what we would be reviewing. Those would be exterior refinishing, new doors, exterior lighting, painting, decorative improvements, new windows, addition or renovation of existing outdoor areas. And that was another change, is item G was taking it beyond just the building itself and saying if a business wanted to improve their existing outdoor seating area, make it more formal, make it more attractive, more inviting, might as well look at that from staff's perspective and see if that would garner support, as well as adding new outdoor seating areas to an existing business that doesn't have those. And then lastly, the category for exterior site improvements. The one caveat we did place on this one is that for the exterior site improvements, being the parking lot repaving, resurfacing, and or landscaping improvements, those would need to be applied for with or accompanying a building upgrade. So you wouldn't be able to just apply for repaving of a parking lot under this program. It has to be the facade. It could be the facade plus your parking lot or the facade plus landscaping, but it couldn't just be installed new landscaping in front of a building that hasn't been painted in 20, 30 years or so. So hopefully that makes sense. And that is all of the changes that were made to this program since the last meeting. And I'll go ahead and stop there and see if anyone has any comments, suggestions, input on this one.
I have a question. Is there a process in place yet to apply for this?
Not at the current moment. We've contemplated the structure of the program, but we want to be able to get a recommendation from this body and take it to city council to get their buy-in and approval prior to actually establishing the program, because ultimately council could say, good idea, but not now. And we didn't want to do all the work for the actual process until council has approved it.
I like the changes. I like the refinement of it. It brings clarity to the process and program. And you did a good job on that, Kyle.
Oh, well, I guess, okay. You hear me now? Okay, I have a question.
That's for.
That's right, yeah, that's right. Okay, where it says paid through reimbursement rebate process or pay per invoice as work is completed and inspected, I'd like to see and completed and passed inspection. Because what if it's inspected and the response is negative, they complied? So just for clarification.
Point taken, that will be how the program is done. Just because they call for an inspection
Yeah.
and they don't pass doesn't mean that we're paying the bill or submitting for reimbursement. So that will 100% be in the final program.
Thank you. And as far as the application process, I would suggest that it be a modification of the ADA form to keep it simple.
It should be a similar format to that.
Do
This
we
is
have,
Chris. This is Chris. I have a question.
go ahead.
Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Program allotment of 200,000. What happened to the 500,000 that I saw in the agenda materials from a November 9 memo?
Thank you, committee member Glider. The 200,000 is just this program's use of that 500,000. So as we go through the next, I think, 3 or 4 programs, we'll end up at that total.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion to accept the,
I think we should do it in a package deal, go through it all, and then recommend the total package to the council.
well,
Yeah, that's fine.
Unless you want to do
I
it
can
piece
go on
by
to the next
piece.
one.
I mean,
but these were the only changes to the package that we've already seen.
Just for the facade, I have changes for the other programs as well. So if it's okay, I'll go to that one.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead, do that?
So on the business attraction program, that was for certain types of businesses, and those are still detailed in the staff report on page 9, being those 5 different types of uses. What we changed was we added an option for existing businesses that are unable to increase their floor space area or occupant load by 50% as an option to apply if they feel they can still meet the program objectives. And this was a direct result of a comment from the last meeting in which they may have a site constraint on a property that prohibits them or prevents them from actually increasing by 50% of the floor area. And I didn't necessarily think of that at the time, but it is a reasonable request. So what staff decided to do, instead of just having an arbitrary percentage that prevents people or allows people to apply, let's get rid of that criteria and allow anyone to apply, and then create a rating system that the review committee will look at in order to gain points. So the more square footage gains you more points, but the way it's structured now is that no one is prevented from applying for an existing business that meets one of these categories that would like to, just based on a percentage. So if you wanted to increase by 20%, you can feel free to apply, and then that will get rated amongst all the other applications that we had. And then if you look at page 10, so it has the purpose, and that's what we had talked about. If you're able to meet the program objectives, so those 1 through 7 are the program objectives, and then the ratings are as follows on there as well. And I'll read those for people that might not have this or watching on YouTube. So fulfill a need within the community, total square footage or occupant load of proposed expansion, estimate of increased sales tax revenue. 4 is demonstrate opportunities for recruiting businesses to fill commercial vacancies. 5, demonstrate need for business expansion for existing. So what we wanted to do on that one is that we want a business that's successful that needs to expand to be able to draw down these funds. What we didn't want, and this had come up at the last meeting, is for an existing restaurant out there that is rarely, if ever, full, just to apply for some money to then expand their business, which then increases their rent, and then they go out of business because they expanded to take advantage of this program, but that actually ended up hurting them, and we don't want that to happen. So demonstrated need for the business expansion will be considered. Encourage additional foot traffic and social activity within the downtown area. Diversify the sales tax base, and then obviously the risk determinant analysis on this one, because this is a forgivable loan. There will be, I wouldn't call it a credit check, but a credit analysis performed by staff to determine the business's credit worthiness in order to gain the loan. And that concludes the changes on this program.
Are there any questions regarding this program? Okay, thank you. Kyle, you want to move on to the next one?
So moving on I'll go ahead and take both of these together, which is the pre-application fee waiver as well as the building investigation fee waiver. And it's a very simple, the first version, we said the maximum number of waivers is one per business. And we changed that to one per business per location. So as if you had a business that took advantage of the pre-inspection for the building and they saw something that they weren't interested in, but they're still interested in the downtown, they can now use that at another building to gain some insight on that building and hopefully be able to attract them to the area.
Are there any additional questions for Kyle?
All right, sorry, go ahead. I was gonna move on to the next program, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one is for the sewer fee deferral. We didn't change the sewer fee deferral at all, but what we did do is enhance that program by calling out or adding to that program a grease trap or grease interceptor matching agreement. And this had come up at the last meeting. The city does have requirements for certain types of businesses to install grease traps or grease interceptors. They're basically the same thing, just they're called out differently depending on the size and the type of facility. So I include both in the language I use. Grease trap program is what we'll likely call it. They're fairly expensive. They're being required of our existing restaurants that have been here for 5 years or 30 years who have never had one before. And that's a burden on those businesses. So we're thinking of recommending to council of creation of this program to assist those existing restaurants with sewer discharge compliance standards that the city is in essence requiring. So we were thinking of doing it for existing restaurants only. I don't believe there's any other types of businesses that are being required to install these. Allow for $1 match of 50% of total project cost, not to exceed $15,000 on the installation of a grease trap or grease interceptor as required by the city on a project totaling $30,000 or more. And then also the grease trap program will be treated as a one-time grant with no repayment required. A little different than the forgivable loan program, but we were just thinking, look, once we get these things into these buildings, the interceptors are normally underground and aren't going to be going anywhere. The grease traps could potentially go away if a business closes, but the grease trap is fairly cheap. And I also thought that, trying to put myself in their shoes, do you really want this greasy thing in the back of your truck if you're going to take off with it? And I thought probably not, so it'll likely stay there. So that concludes the changes to that program.
I just have it's kind of a construction question. Is there something that triggers an existing restaurant that doesn't have a grease trap? I mean, is it improvements? Is it we're just going around and looking for them all?
It was the adoption of our new wastewater discharge permit through OCTA and SAPA, which are acronyms for where our sewer flow goes down in Orange County. And we were required to sign certain agreements with those entities that take our brine from our treatment plant. So as we have an agreement with them, they have requirements on us. Installing grease traps and grease interceptors on certain types of businesses was one of those requirements. So then we need to pass those along to anyone in the city, new or existing.
Can I just add, so since April, we have looked at the requirement on the grease interceptors and the grease traps. We previously were requiring every business to fill out lengthy form, and we have since scaled that back. We have hired a consultant that's going to come up with a program that's point-based and based on number of sinks, number of tables, an entire program where instead of filling out how much effluent, which most people don't know, how much effluent do you have? It's going to be how many sinks do you have, how many toilets do you have, things like that. We haven't been able to roll out that program, so that's going to help in answering the question, who is required. But secondarily, the businesses that I've talked to that are existing, the hangup with them is they don't own the building. And it's thousands of dollars to put these in, and if their business doesn't succeed, they're making improvements on a building that they may be vacating in the next 2 to 3 years. And so I think this particular part of this incentive program is important because it truly is about the existing building and not necessarily, for example, some of us remember when Little Russo's was where Toscano's is. Things like that. Businesses may, we hope not, but they may turn over in these existing buildings, and so this helps those businesses that don't want to drop a lot of money on a property they don't own.
So eventually you are going to approach every restaurant in town that doesn't.
Yeah, and that's per our adopted ordinance, and it has to do with our brine line and our recycled water that we will be producing.
Question. If the restaurant leases the space, obviously leases it, are you going to go after the tenant or the landlord, or both?
We would go after the tenant because the relationship between the tenant and the landlord is not something we're a party to. And so the tenant that is applying for the business, I mean, obviously, we would encourage the owner to, but we can't, because different, for example, 8th and Beaumont Avenue, that's the one I think everybody's most familiar with. There may come a time when there is a brewery where the laundromat is. So when the brewery comes to us and says, we want to put this business in, and there's never been a brewery there before, as part of that business license application, that particular business is going to be on the hook. Now, whether or not they negotiate an agreement with the property owner.
Now, I'm sorry, it seems to me that the obligation is the landlord, it's the owner of the building. If the tenant installs it in the ground, it becomes a fixture of the building and they no longer own it. The building owner owns it, anything attached. So, in essence, the owner of the building gets something, a benefit to make his space more leasable.
Correct.
To the next guy, but he didn't have to pay for it.
Correct.
And it's not like putting in a refrigeration unit, which 9 times out of 10, when the tenant moves out, they take that with them. Because it plugs in the wall, it's not built into like a walk-in refrigerator. I think when this is reviewed by legal, I think that you're gonna, the primary person or party to go after should be the property owner.
Well, we don't actively go after anybody. The applicant comes to us. If the property owner isn't the applicant, we have no mechanism in place, and all we can do is put conditions on the business to say, your business is going to require a grease trap. It's the business owner's responsibility to say yes or no. And how that gets paid, the city would not be a party to that. All we're doing is putting conditions on the business as part of the application process.
But you're making the requirement to the building. I think you're running,
It's as-
potentially, I think it needs to be.
It's as part of
reviewed.
the business application.
No, I understand that.
Right, so
I'm just saying.
the business owner would have, coming in, would have the option to either say, you know what, Mr. Building owner, I can't lease this
That's right.
property because, so
That's
it's up to, but if they decide to go in, then it's incumbent upon them to go ahead, because they know what they're doing going into it. And that's one of the things I think that the city has really done well, is to notify them up front before they enter into a lease.
And part of the pre-inspection, we would cover that. The pre-inspection incentive package would say, by the way, if you're gonna put XYZ in this suite, you're going to be conditioned to do this, and you'll need to talk to your property owner.
Except that there are a couple of issues here. One of them is, me as a tenant, I've already signed the lease, or I wouldn't be able to apply for the permit because I have no standing.
No, you could sign, or you can fill out an application form without having a formal lease in place. Typically, you'll have the landowner sign under the landowner section of the application. Many businesses apply while they're still in lease negotiations,
Right.
or they have a trigger in
Or
the
they
lease.
call us, yeah.
Yeah,
So then, I'm gonna open up a restaurant, and in the pre-inspection, city says, your parking is, you don't have enough handicap parking. So I have to restripe the parking lot. I go back to my landlord. But you're saying this is only on new applications?
This is business license applications, whether it's an APP or.
So an existing restaurant,
No, the existing restaurants, as part of the business license process, is filling out a survey to say how many sinks they have, all of that. So it is on existing businesses, but we're also looking at new businesses that
so
are coming to town.
hypothetically, Ramona's, using them as an example,
Mm-hmm.
they're an established business. They have their business license. You're gonna go to them and say, you have to comply with this as well?
Correct. It's
They
an,
can't renegotiate that with their landlord, assuming they don't own the building.
and that's
Oh,
one
yes,
of the
they
reasons
could.
we created this program.
Correct.
Is we
That's the point
understand
of this
that
program.
it's a hardship. We understand that it doesn't make sense to some businesses that have been in operation for 20 years within the city. Think of Ramona's. I mean, it could be a bad example because they may have one.
Yeah.
But let's just assume they don't. They've been here as long as I've worked here. It's a family business that's been there a long time. To tell them they need a grease trap, they're like, but we've never needed one before. So that's why we've created this program, is to try to help the installation of these things.
No, I think the program is good, don't get me wrong. I just think that we need to, on existing locations, I think we need to focus on the landlord first, on the owner of the property.
Yeah, from our perspective, the use itself is the thing triggering the need for the grease interceptor. So it's the actual restaurant that's triggering the need. If it changed to a shoe store, then the need for the grease interceptor would fall off because they don't have the type of effluent that
yeah,
required, they
but-
don't have grease.
But Kyle, if the zoning changes while I'm in existence, you can't obligate, you know what I'm trying to say?
You're talking about
saying-
legal non-conforming zoning and that concept.
I mean, you know, the area's been rezoned away from restaurants.
Sure.
While the restaurant's there. Until the restaurant changes hands or they have to get a new lease or get a new building license, a business license, we can't kick them out because the zoning changed on that property. You have to
Yes.
wait until it changes hands. So in an existing restaurant, you know, it seems to me, even though the city is offering a sharing of costs, to go after the existing restaurant to say, you've been there for 10, 20 years, whatever, 5 years, whatever, but you've been there, the rules have changed, and now we're implementing that requirement on you, and you get to pay for it, as opposed to the owner of the property who will get the benefit. That's my,
so let me do this. Can I offer that we have a session on the, what do they call it? Fats, oils, there's an acronym.
The
The
FOB.
FOB. Because it's extremely complicated and it's a lot more involved than I think we can accomplish tonight. But let me just remind everybody, there is an adopted ordinance, and in that ordinance, it says existing businesses will comply. This is part of our MPDES permit, it's part of our brine line, it's part of our recycled water program. So I hear what you're saying, it is not fair to existing businesses that don't own the property, but we're trying to find a way to work through that. And so that's why we put this in there.
I appreciate that.
But I think what we
would like
can
to
do
further-
is maybe after the first of the year, we can, because this would be a good committee to bounce off the idea of the point system as part of the business license process. And so I think what we can do is ask the general manager of utilities to come and give a short presentation on what businesses will encounter when they come and apply for a business license. I think that would help.
Is there a timeline in this agreement that we have to comply with every restaurant, or is there?
We've been giving them time.
We're
and then
working with them, but
Also because we've created the point system, or we're creating the point system that Manager Gibbs is alluding to. What we don't want is for people that were on the list to install them to just go out and install them real quick, for them to come back once we've refined and created the point system to tell them, actually, you didn't need to spend $15,000 on that. So we're in the process of creating that program. We'll bring that back to the committee in its draft form, so you can kind of review it, or possibly the final form, depending on
I was
timing.
asking, is there a timeline in the agreement that we made with the, I'm going to get this wrong, the brine line people, or is there?
it's now.
It's
It
now.
was adopted, yeah.
Well, and we have to immediately do it?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So
It has to
comply-
do with our relationship with other agencies and our brine line and what we're putting down the sink and what's coming out of the treatment plant. And
They have to comply right away. It's not like
Yes.
they have 1 year, 2 years, 5 years.
no, it's
That
an
time is
immediate,
gone.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
We had sent notices out to existing
Mm-hmm.
businesses a couple years ago while we were doing the upgrade to the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay.
This is Richard here. Do we know how many businesses this change has affected? We're talking primarily about restaurants, correct? With this change? And do we know how many businesses have been affected? We should have a handle on
We-
that.
We do have a number, we just don't have it here with us. We do actually have an employee that's 100% dedicated to, he's our environmental compliance officer. He is 100% dedicated to working with these businesses to get them into compliance. But I don't, to answer your question, I don't have the number off the top of my head. But it's every restaurant, definitely, Starbucks. Yeah, he has a very precise list on which businesses must comply.
And this was enacted, what, a year ago, 2 years ago?
It started 2 years ago, and I think it was adopted a year or 18 months ago.
Okay, so we are now in the process of implementing this directive based on our agreement with the wastewater treatment plant and our accompanying agencies that were involved with in that whole process. So we basically, as a city, created the, I don't want to call it a problem. We created an agreement that now becomes a problem for certain businesses that have to now comply with it. And I think what we're looking at here, or what we're talking about, is trying to provide some, what's the word? Soft landing maybe for a lot of these businesses, so they don't have to have this immediate impact of $10,000, $20,000, $15,000, whatever. And then in the future, this also will be helpful to individuals who want to start a business and may have to implement this same policy or procedure, or adhere to it anyway. So I can understand why, somebody may say, well, it's kind of unfair for people who have been here a long time. But on the other hand, if you're a business and there's new technology that comes along, are you going to stay in the past, or are you going to go out and buy that new technology that will help your business or help your business? So that, kind of goes both ways on
Yeah. Okay, is there any further discussion?
Just the caveat that you can tell based on our discussion here, why I was looking to, or why staff was looking to do it as a one-time grant versus to figure out the repayment of who's gonna repay us and to lien the property and all of that. It just makes it so much cleaner. If we get compliance, the restaurant gets what they need, we share in the cost 50/50, and we all kind of move forward on existing businesses. The new ones, as the city manager alluded to, they'll know what their requirement is up front. If they want to use, if they fall into one of these categories, and they want to use some of their money for the attraction program to install a grease trap, more the power to them. But at least they know going in what the requirements are. The existing ones is what this is dedicated for, just because they didn't know what a requirement was 3 or 4 years ago.
So
that
this
they would see.
program is specifically for existing restaurants?
The program we're talking about tonight, yes.
Any further questions now?
That concludes
Does
my
the,
report.
this is Chris Glider, does the expenditure or the grants to fund the programs, does that have to align with the fiscal year that, for which it's been budgeted?
Yes, currently we have that $500,000 for these various programs that is for the current fiscal year, which is 22-23.
We can, as part of the budget process, to add to Kyle's comment, we can certainly, in our accounting, if there is a balance in these incentive programs, we can take that forward to council as part of the budget process and ask council to reprogram into the next fiscal year, whatever is left, or another $500,000 in the next budget year. That's something that we'll talk about during the budget process.
Very good, thank you.
One quick comment. Did council approve additional funds for this program? Is this the one?
Let me get my notes. Hold on 1 minute.
And when I say program, I'm talking about the specific sewer program, but in general, the downtown business? Yes.
I was under the impression they had approved that.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. So I think it's a total of $1 million now.
And we're just we're refining the policy or looking at a recommendation back to the council with this pot of money sitting out here, how we were gonna work it. So,
If you want to
So,
move on, I can look.
okay, so we're not really in a position to approve or disapprove this program with the discussed changes, or?
Well, what we would look at doing is if the committee feels comfortable making a recommendation to city council on the draft that's been presented as Exhibit A to the staff report, or if you'd like to see changes on that program, or if you don't like the program, then that's perfectly fine as well, and we can decide to table it. Or you can also choose to continue the item to a future meeting. But if there is a member or members that want this thing to move forward, the next action is to recommend that city council do something, approve this proposed program.
And so quickly going back to Councilmember Lara's question, City Council did approve to allocate $5 million as part of the fund balance, but it was a package of downtown revitalization, Grace Building, tenant improvements, and real estate acquisition.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gibbs.
So does that mean that the amounts that are discussed here are not correct?
No,
they're part of the package.
these amounts are correct in what council has currently budgeted right now for the current fiscal year budget. The budget discussion that was being had was during the workshop, and then the budget amendment that adds additional funds to a downtown pot of money, but it wasn't earmarked per se. I hate using that word, but it wasn't allocated directly towards the incentive program like the 500,000 was. But council could choose to do that at their will.
So we could approve this. It's going to be applied to these restaurants, and we're just going to have to deal with that in the future. But we can go ahead and approve this program to assist the people as they work through this, which is going to be fun.
Yeah, I would like to, this is a recommendation to the council, and I, as a committee member, would like to make a motion, see if I have a second on it, that we do recommend this plan as presented tonight with the changes to the council for their consideration.
I'll second it.
Okay, Nicole?
Councilmember Lara,
Yes.
City Manager Gibbs,
Yes.
Manager Worzinski,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rader,
Yes.
Member Ahmed,
Yes.
Member Beneke,
Yes?
Member Copeland,
Yes?
Member Moran,
Yes.
and Member Glider.
Yes.
Thank you. Upcoming vacancies on the city commissions and committees, staff report.
Let me switch gears. Committee, this is a formal notice, just letting you know of the upcoming vacancies within this committee as well as the other committees of the city, including Planning Commission. So attached and in your packet, you'll see a list of upcoming vacancies. So those that are highlighted have a term that is ending. So I just wanted to make everyone aware of that, and that the application is up on the city's website to apply or reapply. And that due date is December 8th at 5 p.m. And the interview process and appointments will be done on December 20th during the city council meeting. Thank you.
Do we have to reapply, or could we just indicate our intention to be reappointed?
The process has been to reapply, just so we have a paper trail on everything. The application is on the website.
You want current information on everybody?
Yes, please.
Okay, I haven't been in jail or anything, so no problem.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Do we have any committee reports, additional committee reports?
Chair, the only thing I have is that the city council did award the contract for the downtown revitalization plan to a company called GHD Incorporated. So we will be performing a kickoff with them in the near future. And also just wanted to prep the EDC that you all be part of the stakeholders for that plan. And they'll be presenting workshops to this committee, to the Planning Commission, to City Council, as well as the public. So we will be more than sure to invite you to all of those.
Thank you. The chamber does have a Good Morning Beaumont tomorrow, but it's full. So that's 4 months in a row we've been full, so that's good news. Good news for everyone, actually. On November 18th is Student of the Month at the Sizzler in Banning. Wonderful program, if any of you could attend that. The Chamber has a blood drive on November 23rd and also on December 7th in the Chamber parking lot. And our December 9th will be our Good Morning Beaumont Breakfast Christmas Party. Benefiting Child Help USA, we're going to have an ugly sweater contest. So find your sweaters. We've been going to the thrift stores and haven't found much. So that's what the Chamber's doing. And we're also going to have a drive for, we're going to be reaching out to our 3 senior citizen hospitals that are members of the Chamber, and will be delivering Christmas presents to the senior citizens. So there will be a list of things that they want. So appreciate anything that you can contribute. Thank you. Topics for future agendas.
Can I just add, the Veterans Day Parade is Friday at 10 a.m. Veterans Day Parade is Friday at 10 a.m., and I have it on good authority that if you're in the audience, you might just get your own, very own flag.
That's nice.
Okay, yes, so we're excited
I
about
have
that.
one question real quick. I had a note here when we were talking about the downtown business incentive program. Is there anywhere in this where we define the downtown area? Do we make reference to the specific plan in this document? Do we have street boundaries? Downtown is kind of generic and everybody looks at it. Some people as a 2-block radius, some people as a 6-block radius. So I'm just wondering if we need to, just to make sure when we're talking about this program, that people know that they exist in the downtown periphery or parameter of this policy. Is
Yes.
that necessary? Do you think that's necessary?
I think that's a great comment. We've contemplated it for the sake of this program. We've contemplated the downtown mixed use, which is included on our general plan in zoning, and then our Beaumont Avenue mixed use zone. So that's from 5th up to, I want to say, 11th. And then the downtown mixed use is, I think, Edgar over to Palm, but we're also thinking of expanding it a little bit further towards the east to Pennsylvania. And then someone else that was looking at acquiring the Red Barn said, well, I'm not in your downtown mixed use either. Are you going to extend it this way? And it started getting me thinking about, do we really need a definitive border of what the downtown is, or can someone that is on the periphery, very close to that downtown, that will still have synergy and create foot traffic and really help that area? If they're off by a block, is that really a deal breaker? So we will create a map and also have the subsequent discussion on if someone's right across the street from the line that we drew, if they're able to apply or not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, topics for future agendas.
I'm sorry, I've got one quick report. I apologize.
That's okay.
Last Saturday, the 5th, we had a downtown cleanup where we walked the parade route to pick up debris, trash. We had Interact assist us. Patrick was representing which HOA?
The
Sundance
Sundance South, yeah.
Yeah, so they assisted us as well. We also had city staff come out and to help us do that as well.
I heard it was really good, so word's gotten around town that it
Oh,
was
good.
really a
good,
good
yeah.
event.
It was a nice way to spend the morning. It was actually not bad at all. We had a lot of help, yeah.
We intend to do that every Saturday prior to a parade
Oh,
to target
wonderful.
the downtown area.
Great. Anyone else?
Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome, thank you. Introduction to new business program. And these are future agendas. The RCTC passenger rail project and the 2022 retail market analysis. That's getting old if we're heading towards
I say
2023.
we're almost ready to present the 2023 one. So I could tell you what the 2022 one looked like, but normally we have that updated around late February, early March of each year. So more than happy to present the market analysis. And also I could show you the difference between just 2021 and 22. I didn't expect much of a difference, but it is a visible difference. Not significant, but enough to notice. So
I just think it'd be interesting to see if we made any progress.
it was progress in the right direction.
Well, yeah,
So
but
it
that's
was a
progress.
noticeable difference in the direction we're looking for.
Chair, can I just mention the San Gorgonio Pass Rail presentation? So they are scheduled to present to City Council on December 20th. It might be easier on RCTC staff if this committee watched that presentation. We like to be mindful of their staff time in coming out here. So I would propose that we recommend to the committee members to watch that December 20th.
Is this a horrible thing to ask of Nicole? Can you send an email to the committee reminding them that that's going to happen? I mean, that will help me. Thank you. Anything else?
Carl,
Okay.
you're going to add Ms. Gibbs's recommendation about the fog to the future agenda topic?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Our next meeting is December 14th at 4 o'clock in the same location. Thank you for being patient with me. I'm not used to running meetings anymore.
Great job, Betty.
We got out in good time.
Smooth as silk.
You did a great job.
Great job, great job.
Well, on Alan, you just couldn't see it. Okay, I get to do it there.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yes,
We
I
need a
did. Thank you very
formal
much.
motion to adjourn or
I
not?
accidentally did not put it in the car. I was going to wear